I haven't quit YouTube. I want to be just very clear about that. I actually feel more energized than ever about YouTube because I think I've figured out a little bit what this channel is going to be and the mission that I'm on. And I want to explain that in just a moment, but I want to explain where I've been, what's been going on. It's been a crazy last few weeks. I went to 2 retreats, spoke at these retreats. They were wonderful. Shout out to all the folks that I met there. And I got really sick when I came back. And then immediately, while I was recovering from being sick, I got a new job. It rhymes with Trader Joe's. And I've been working mornings, 4 a.m. And that's been a little bit of an adjustment. I love it, by the way. And school started too for my kids, and it's just been a lot. So it's not that I just, didn't want to record these videos. I just haven't had time. But a good thing happened while all of this life was happening is I've had some time to kind of think, okay, so are we still doing this? I think life can just kind of take over and I could just not do the YouTube. But that never really was a serious consideration for me. If anything, there were these things that kept coming up like, no, we're definitely going to do this because there's this mission. There's something really important that we want to say, and not that I'm the only one who can say it, but God is putting these things on my heart. We live in this really crazy time with AI and just everything's just up in the air. And I heard this thing in a podcast that I saw. I think this was Diary of a CEO, where they were talking to people about the AI revolution, the different things that are coming down the pipe. One of the folks on this panel was talking about just how much life has changed. And we're experiencing kind of exponential change. So just an example of how this affects us is, if you think maybe 200 years ago, if you were a kid, you pretty much knew what you were going to do when you're an adult. You just look at your parents, and whatever your parents were doing, you'd probably be doing that too. But about 50 years ago, there were folks who would end up doing something as an adult that didn't exist when they were a kid, right? And then now there are people who are studying in college thinking that they're going to do one kind of job in 3-4 years, and that job may not exist in 3 or 4 years, let alone in a year. And all of this change and craziness doesn't as much make me scared as it kind of excites me in a weird way, because I think there is this great opportunity. I have this hunch that we need God more now than we've ever needed God before. But the whole landscape of faith has completely changed in 2025. And again, I don't think it's completely a bad thing. I think a lot of people in the church are freaking out. I was a church pastor for 25 years, and I've seen that the church across the board is not necessarily doing awesome. If you go back 50 plus years in America, most people were going to church. Most people in the West went to church. That's changed. That's no longer the case. And we live in what many people consider a post-Christian world. But if you go back to that time when most people were going to church, it was not a question of if you went to church. It was which church did you go to? So a lot of Christians occupied their time by arguing with other Christians. And, we argued about, relatively minor points of theology, some more important than others. And you go back in the history of the West, and most people did not decide to be a Christian. Maybe they decided that they were going to be serious about their faith at some point, but most people were just born into it. You go back all the way to 312 with the Emperor Constantine. And it's kind of crazy because up until 311, Christians were heavily persecuted in the Roman Empire. And then seemingly overnight, everyone becomes a Christian. Why? Because they had a change of heart? No, it's because Constantine became a Christian. And so therefore, everyone else became a Christian. And so, I mean, I was born into a Christian household, but growing up in this time where Christianity is not just a given anymore, that even for those of us who grew up with the Christian faith, you've had to kind of really consider, right? Do I want to keep doing this thing? Even if you are not serious about faith, we're serious about life. And I think for me, my faith has really helped me in life. And I think now more than ever, we need faith. We need a solid ground on which we can stand and firmly plant our feet when everything is just shaken, everything is topsy-turvy. And so what I want my channel to be about is getting back to the essentials of faith. I think Christians have gotten a little distracted over the years. When we were winning, we were arguing about maybe relatively minor things. And I think even as a church pastor, I could have been a church pastor for the rest of my life, and there's nothing wrong with that. I still love the church. I'm not trying to be negative about church, but my focus would have been just on running the church and doing that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, part of the reason why I left is I wanted to find new ways to talk to people about faith, hence the YouTube. And so not being in a church context or having to run a church, I think I'm able to kind of strip away some of the stuff. You know, maybe we've gotten a little bloated in terms of our mission or, you know, some of the things that the church is about. And I want to make the majors, and I want to really strip away all of the other things that, not that they don't matter, but when we're talking about why we need God right now, I want to talk about that. In the coming weeks, I want to take a little bit more time with these videos to be a little bit more thoughtful about them. I was trying to do videos like every day, and I think that was a little too much. I'm thinking like a video a week maybe, and I think there's going to be like 3 big buckets for the videos. One is going to be what I call essence. What is the essence of faith that we need, you know, today, now? And the second bucket is like all the practical stuff, the how-to. And the third bucket is going to be like, etc., you know, just kind of like fun videos or videos that don't necessarily fit into those buckets. And I've got kind of a fun idea that I'm thinking about, and I'm actually actively planning this video. Thank you so much to everyone who's been supporting and watching my videos. If you like and subscribe, it would mean so much to me. And I look forward to the next video and seeing you there. Bye.